Welcome Algebra 2. This is section 4-4, factoring quadratic expressions. The essential question is, how are you going to factor quadratic expressions? Let's begin. So this is a little bit of a review. You should have seen this in Algebra 1, but got to go over this again. This is a quadratic expression. This is the standard form here, ax squared plus bx plus c, where a, b, and c are some numbers. So coefficients right here, and some number by itself. This is what factoring quadratic expressions is. So I get something in the form like this, x squared plus 9x plus 20, and I factor it, and it turns into x plus 4 times x plus 5. How do I factor that, though? And honestly, there's about a dozen ways to factor this. And you were taught one way last year. It doesn't matter who was your teacher, and maybe I was your teacher too, but every teacher teaches it a little differently. So I'm going to teach you the way I like it best and the way it works best for me. But I might show you a few different other ways, but I don't want to confuse you. But really, if you have a way that works for you and you want to do it that way, that's fine. I don't care how you solve this, as long as you do the work. And yeah, learn it whatever way works best for you. All right. So how does my way work? So what if I want to factor x squared plus bx plus c? So basically a equals 1. So this is a case where a equals 1, just x squared by itself. In this example, what I would like to do is I create a 4-square box. So just an empty box with 4 squares, so it looks originally like this. Just a box with 4 squares. And you're going to put that x squared, that right term, or the left term, on the top left corner, and the right term 20 on the bottom right corner. Alright? Second step is I want you to split up that b. So that b, that 9x, we're splitting that 9 into two numbers. And basically you have to figure out two numbers that multiply to the right, so 20, and add to the middle, 9. So you have to multiply to 20 and add to 9. And in this case, it's 4 times 5, because 4 and 5. 4 times 5 is 20, and 4 plus 5 is 9. So when I'm splitting that 9x into a 4x plus a 5x. And I'm putting those in that box like I did right here. So that's my blank box, and I put in the 4x on one of those corners and 5x in the other one. It doesn't matter which order you do it in. I can flip those two. Alright, so I filled in my box. Now, after you fill in your box, you want to factor out a greatest common factor in the columns and rows. So basically what I'm doing is, let's actually show the work here. So I've got my box, and I want to factor out, and let's say I do this column first. 4x and 20, the greatest common factor is going to be positive 4, so I'm going to go plus 4. Alright? Now, x squared and x, I can factor out an x. Now on this row right here, x squared and 4x, I can factor out an x. And 5x and 20, I can factor out a positive 5. So what you get is your two factors are x plus 4 on the top and x plus 5 on the side. So that's why my factored form is x plus 5 times x plus 4. It doesn't matter which order you put these in. I could do x plus 4 first, then x plus 5. It's because they're being multiplied, it's okay. So that's my factored answer. And it just takes a little bit of practice to get right. So let's look at a different case. This is when a is not equal to 1. So for example, 2x squared plus 11x plus 2. Well, what I still do is I still create a 4-square box first. I'm going to put the left term in the top left and the right term in the bottom right. Still doing that. Now, step number 2 changes a little bit. I want to find those two numbers. They have to add to the b, so add to the middle. In this case, it's 11, and multiply to the left times the right, so a times c. So a times c is 2 times 12. In this case, 2 times 12. And so a is 2, b is 11, and c is 12 in this case. So 2 times 12, which will be 24, and b is 11. So what are two numbers that multiply to 24 and add to 11? That's 3 and 8, because 3 times 8 is 24, and 3 plus 8 is 11. So since 3 and 8 are my answers, I put a 3 right here, 3x, and this becomes an 8x. Basically, I'm splitting that 11x. I split that 11x into 3x plus 8x. All right? And I put each piece right here. So this whole block is that expression. I just kind of broke up the middle term. Now the last thing is you want to factor out the greatest common factor again. So what I'll do in this case, I don't want to show the work again. Shouldn't have done it that way. Oh well. So what I want to do is factor out, I got an 8x and a 12, factoring this way, and I can factor out a positive 4. And going this way, 2x squared and 3x, I can just factor out an x. Over here, it's 2 and 8, so I can factor out 2, and x squared and x, that's going to be 2x. And over here, I can factor out a positive 3. So my two factors are going to be x plus 4 on the top, and then 2x plus 3 on the side. So that is the factored form of this 2x squared plus 11x plus 12. This is the answer I'm looking for. All Alright, let's try something else. So sometimes you have to factor out a greatest common factor first. So if I had this 4x squared plus 20x minus 56, I can factor out 4 from everything. So the way I would actually do this, do this by hand, 4x squared plus 20x minus 56. I say, hey, what can I pull out of each of these? I can pull out a 4. So what I like doing is doing these arrows to say, hey, I'm factoring out something. And I factor out a 4 because everything, all these coefficients are divisible by 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1, so I'm just left with x squared. 20 divided by 4 is 5, so I'm left with 5x. And 56 divided by 4 is going to be 14, so it's minus 14. So now I have 4 times this quantity, and you can factor this part right here, and it became x minus 2 times x plus 7. I'm going to show you how we actually got that. So I'm going to make a box, 4 square box. And I'm going to put x squared up here, and then negative 14 on the side. And two numbers that multiply to negative 14 and add to 5x are going to be negative 2 and positive 7. Because negative 2 plus 7 is going to equal 5, and negative 2 times 7 is going to equal negative 14, and that checks out. So my two factors are going to be negative 2x and positive 7x. If I factor out the greatest common factors up this way, you're going to factor out a 7. Up this way, you're going to factor out an x, so x plus 7. Over this way, I'm going to factor out an x, and since they're both negative, it's going to be minus, and I can factor out nothing, so it will, or I can factor out a 2, so it'll be minus 2. So my answer is going to be the x minus 2 times the x plus 7. But you can't forget that 4 as well, this 4. So that's how I got my factored form. Alright, so there's some special cases. One of the special cases is difference of squares. So it's the format if you're a squared plus b squared equals a minus b times a plus b. Some examples, if you have x squared minus 25, it factors. Basically, you're square rooting each of these to figure out your factors. So your square root of x squared is x, the square root of 25 is 5. So it's x minus 5 and x plus 5. On the next one here, you square root that, and it becomes x. The square root of 16 becomes 4. So it's x minus 4, x plus 4. Over on this one, square root of 25x squared is 5x. Square root of 49 is 7, so it's 5x minus 7 and 5x plus 7. Alright, so let's try some examples. Pause the video. Okay, I'm going to factor this. So the first thing I do is I put an x squared in my top left and a 40 in my bottom right. Two numbers that multiply to 40 and add to 14. So you might start with multiplying to 40 and see what numbers kind of come up with. And it's a lot of guessing and testing. You're not always going to get it the first time. The more you do this, the better you'll get at it. And my two numbers are going to be 10 and 4. Because 10 plus 4 is going to be 14. And 10 times 4 is going to be 40. So those check out. So since those are my two numbers, I'm going to put a 10x over here and a 4x over here. Doesn't matter the order. So if I'm factoring out the greatest common factors on the columns, that's going to factor out a positive 4. And this is going to factor out an x. Over here we're going to factor out an x. And over here we're going to factor out positive 10. So the factored form is x plus 10 times x plus 4. And that's my answer. Alright, next one. Pause the video. Alright, so we got a coefficient of 4 this time, so it's a little different. I'm going to put the 4x squared here, and I'm going to put the 3 here. Now, I need two numbers that multiply to 4 times 3. So 4a times c. This is my a, this is my c, and this is my b. I need to do a times c this time. So it's going to be 4 times 3. That's 12. And then they have to add to 7. So I need a number that multiplies to 12 and add to 7. And those two numbers are going to be 3 and 4. Because 3 times 4 is going to be 12. And 3 plus 4 is going to be 7. So I have a 3x and a 4x. And now I just want to factor. So this way, 4x and 3, greatest common factor is actually 1. Can't factor anything more. And up here it's going to be x. So x plus 1. Over here I can factor out a 4 and an x, so it's going to be 4x. And out here I can factor out a 3, so it'll be plus 3. So my two factors are going to be 4x plus 3 times an x plus 1. Alright, last one. Alright, so first thing, a 9, 9, and 18, I can factor out a greatest common factor. So I like doing these arrows just for my note. I say, yeah, I got to factor out a 9. But if you factor out 9, you're left with x squared. And this is going to be plus 1x, or just x, and then minus 2. So now I got to factor this trinomial right here. And I'll put those in the box. So it's x squared's right here, and minus 2's here. That's a 1x here. So I need basically two numbers that multiply to -2, and they have to add to +1. So numbers that would do that are going to be +2 and -1, because 2 times -1 is -2, and 2 plus -1 is going to be +1. So I'm going to put those terms on these two boxes, so it'll be 2x and -1x. All right, let's factor out. So going up this side, I can factor out a -1. That's it. Going up here, I can factor out an x. Going this way, I factor out an x. And going this way, I can factor out a +2. So my factors are x minus 1 and x plus 2. But actually, I should write this over here. So don't forget this 9. So it's going to be 9 times x minus 1 times x plus 2. So that's my complete factored form. And that's it.